Imagine living your entire life outside this massive sealed fortress.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a brilliant, blinding light inside this place. You hear rumors of it from other people. You see the faint glow escaping from the cracks in the stone.
Right.
But the doors are locked, the windows are shuttered completely, and once a single year, one specific person is allowed to cross the threshold, step into that light for just a few moments, and then those heavy doors slam shut again.
Just a brief moment.
Yeah, and the rest of us, we just sit in the shadows, taking his word for what the light actually looks like. So welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we are taking the sources you shared with us and looking into Jonathan Edwards' writing on extraordinary prayer for the revival of religion.
It is a really fascinating section of his writing.
It really is. Specifically, we are looking at a section he titled The Latter-day Glory Unspeakably Great. And, our mission today is to unpack this breathtaking, comprehensive vision of the future advancement of Christ's kingdom on earth.
That fortress analogy you just used, it captures the historical reality of the Old Covenant beautifully, I think.
Thanks. Yeah, it feels very closed off.
It was. The access was strictly limited, it was mediated, and frankly, it was shrouded in thick darkness. You had the high priest entering the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement.
Only once a year.
Right. Only once. Think about the sensory experience of that day for the average Israelite. You are standing outside in the hot sun. You hear the bells on the hem of the high priest's garment jingling.
Yeah, those bells.
And you smell the overwhelming scent of the incense, which was literally designed to create a smokescreen.
So he couldn't see clearly.
Yeah, so the priest wouldn't accidentally catch a clear glimpse of the presence resting above the Ark of the Covenant and, well, die on the spot.
Man.
The presence of God was there, resting between the cherubim, but it was completely cloaked. It was hidden behind a thick veil, dwelling in thick darkness. God was present, but he was entirely concealed from the people.
The terror of that moment is just palpable. The people outside are probably holding their breath, waiting to hear if those bells stop ringing.
Absolutely.
Because if they stop ringing, the priest is dead. The unshielded reality of God was lethal to them.
It was a very real fear.
But Edwards is painting a picture of a future where that fortress is leveled. He contrasts this historical hiddenness with a future where God is openly visible to everyone.
Right, a total shift.
Yeah, he writes that all flesh will see his glory. He says the temple of God in heaven should be open, and he is referencing Revelation 11.19 there. And he pulls from Isaiah 24, suggesting the light of this glory will replace the sun and moon, making the sun ashamed by comparison.
The sheer scale of the contrast Edwards is drawing here is staggering. He is looking at the architectural realities of ancient Israel. The outer courts, the inner courts, the holy place, and finally the Holy of Holies. And he is basically saying all of those concentric circles of separation are just gone.
Just wiped out entirely.
Yeah. Historically, Moses experienced God on the mountaintop, but even that was so fleeting.
Right, he had to hide.
He had to be hidden in the cleft of a rock and covered by God's hand just to see his back.
Cool.
And even then, his face glowed so brightly, he had to wear a veil when he spoke to the Israelites.
Because they were terrified of it.
Yeah, they couldn't handle the secondhand residual glow of God's glory. But Edwards argues that this incredibly rare, exclusive, terrifying privilege will become the constant daily reality for all of God's people.
So we go from living in a house with all the blinds tightly shut, maybe catching a tiny sliver of sunlight once a year, to having the entire roof ripped off.
That is a good way to put it.
The house is just flooded with perpetual daylight. But wait, I am stuck on this idea of the roof coming off.
Okay, what is the hang-up?
Well, we just established that the Old Testament figures were terrified they would die just from seeing an angel, let alone the unfiltered glory of the Creator.
Right.
Isaiah cries out that he is ruined, that he is coming apart at the seams when he sees the Lord in the temple.
He does.
So if this glory is so blinding, how do ordinary people withstand it without being consumed? How does humanity survive the roof being ripped off like that?
Well, the fear in the Old Testament was entirely justified. Sinful humanity cannot stand in the unshielded presence of a holy God without being undone.
Yeah, it is a bad mix.
The physical and spiritual incompatibility is absolute. Light destroys darkness. So what Edwards is describing here implies a massive preceding act of purification.
Oh, I see.
For all flesh to see his glory and not be consumed, the people themselves must be changed. They must be made capable of dwelling in that light.
They need new capacities.
Yeah, the light becomes their constant daily light instead of the sun. It is a complete reversal of the fall.
That makes a lot of sense.
Instead of hiding in the bushes like Adam and Eve in Genesis, covering themselves in shame, humanity walks continually in the light.
No more hiding.
Right. The shame and the fear are gone. Edwards notes that the saints are made unspeakably happy by this view.
Unspeakably happy.
Yeah, the glory of God is no longer a threat to their existence. It actually becomes the very source of their joy, their vitality, and their energy.
You have probably felt this. You sit down to pray, and it feels like you are talking to drywall.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at the news or even just look at your own life, and it feels shrouded in thick darkness.
Yeah, very heavy.
But Edwards is telling you that feeling of distance has an expiration date. He is saying this is a guaranteed future reality. The walls come down, and the light is everywhere.
And you cannot have that level of divine illumination without it fundamentally altering how the human mind operates.
All right, the mind has to change too.
When light hits an object, it exposes every detail. When the light of God's glory hits the human intellect, it clears away the fog, the bias, and the ignorance.
Edwards leans hard into this cognitive shift. He really does.
He does.
He says this era features a vast increase in knowledge and understanding. The veil spread over all nations is destroyed. Spiritual maturity accelerates at a blistering pace.
Which is an incredible thought.
And this part is fascinating to me. He says, holiness gets inscribed on mundane, everyday objects.
Let us examine the specific biblical metaphors Edwards highlights here, because the precision he uses is remarkable.
Yeah, let's break that down.
He quotes Isaiah 30, saying the light of the sun becomes sevenfold.
And 7 is big in the Bible.
Yeah, 7 is the biblical number of completion and perfection. So he is talking about perfect, complete intellectual and spiritual illumination.
Wow.
Then he quotes Isaiah 32, where the heart of the rash will suddenly understand knowledge.
The heart of the rash. That is an interesting phrase.
Think about what a rash heart is today. It is the person who fires off an angry email without thinking.
Oh, yeah. We all know that person.
Or maybe we are that person sometimes. It is the person driven by a sudden spike of adrenaline, acting on impulse, entirely incapable of long-term wisdom or reflection.
That is a very modern problem.
But Edwards is saying that the cognitive baseline of humanity gets elevated dramatically. Those who typically act without thinking will gain immense wisdom.
That would change everything.
It would. The impulsivity that ruins lives and relationships is replaced by a calm, settled understanding of reality.
He also brings in Jeremiah 31, the promise of the new covenant, where the need to teach neighbors to know the Lord vanishes.
Right, because everyone will already know.
Everyone from the least to the greatest will already know him. He writes that little children will have the spiritual attainments of a 100-year-old, referencing Isaiah 65.
Which is hard to even picture.
And the feeble will become as strong as King David, pulling from Zechariah 12. But I have a question about this.
Sure, go ahead.
If little children possess the spiritual wisdom of a century-old saint, and no one needs to teach their neighbor the basics of the gospel, what happens to parenting?
That is a great question.
Does the role of the parent or the mentor just evaporate completely in this vision?
Well, the role of the parent or teacher is not eradicated. Rather, the friction of teaching is removed.
The friction.
Yeah. Right now, teaching spiritual truths often feels like swimming upstream against human nature.
It is exhausting.
A parent labors to teach a child patience, reverence, or self-control. And it is a daily battle against the child's innate selfishness.
Any parent listening knows exactly what you mean.
In this future state, that resistance is gone. The child's heart is so illuminated that they grasp divine truths with the maturity of a seasoned saint.
So they just get it.
They do. The parent still guides, the mentor still mentors, but the recipient absorbs the instruction instantly and perfectly.
That sounds amazing.
It is discipleship without the drag coefficient of total depravity fighting you every single step of the way.
And what about the neighbor?
As for the neighbor, the formal evangelistic plea of know the Lord ceases because the initial regenerative knowledge is universal.
So you aren't doing basic introductions to God anymore.
Right. The community shifts from basic evangelism to mutual, joyful contemplation of a God they already intimately know.
That makes sense. Then we get to this detail about everyday items. Holiness will be stamped on horse bells and common cooking pots.
From Zechariah.
Yeah, elevating them to the status of the sacred bowls before the altar. We are so wired to view Sunday morning as holy and Monday morning traffic or like Tuesday night dishes as secular.
It is a huge divide in our minds.
We have this rigid mental divide. Church is sacred space and the kitchen is just life. But if everything is holy, doesn't the word holy lose its meaning?
How so?
Well, if the cooking pot is holy and the altar is holy, what is the difference anymore?
This is pulling from Zechariah 14,
Yeah.
and it is about the complete eradication of the sacred-secular divide.
Okay.
In the ancient temple, the bowls before the altar were intensely sacred because they held the blood of the sacrifices.
Very specific sacred use.
A cooking pot in a common house was just a piece of clay. But true holiness is not about the physical material. It is about the dedication of the object.
The dedication.
Edwards is saying the dedication that previously only existed in the temple will bleed out into the streets, into the kitchens, onto the harnesses of the horses.
Everything is dedicated.
Every single human action, whether worshiping in a sanctuary or boiling water for tea, is done with a pure, unblemished dedication to God's glory.
That changes the whole perspective on chores.
It really does. The word holy doesn't lose its meaning. Rather, the entire scope of human existence gets elevated to meet the definition of the word.
That is beautiful.
You are no longer living a divided life where you give God 2 hours on Sunday and keep the rest for yourself. Your entire existence becomes an act of worship.
So if you have a population whose minds are entirely illuminated and who view doing the dishes or riding a horse as a holy act of worship, what happens when those people vote?
Things change.
Or when they become mayors, governors, or kings? You can't have a changed populace without it completely breaking the current political system.
Precisely. Edwards recognizes that vital piety cannot be contained within the walls of a private home.
It has to leak out.
It inevitably spills over into the highest levels of human government. He moves from the individual to the geopolitical sphere here.
Edwards states that true Christianity becomes uppermost in the world. The poor are raised from the dunghill to sit among princes.
A total reversal of status.
He uses imagery from Isaiah 49 of kings becoming nursing fathers and queens nursing mothers to the church.
Which is very intimate language for royalty.
Yeah. He quotes Isaiah 45 saying, "The rich among the people shall entreat the favor of the faithful. Global war ceases completely.
Completely ceases.
Swords are beaten into plowshares, bows are broken, spears cut in sunder, and chariots burned in the fire."
Historically, the church has often been marginalized, persecuted, or just ignored by the ruling classes.
Oh, for sure.
In Edwards' vision, that dynamic has completely flipped. In the ancient Near East, the monarch was seen as the provider and protector of the state.
Right.
Edwards applies this to the church. The vast resources, influence, and authority of geopolitical leaders will be entirely devoted to nurturing and protecting true religion.
Wow.
The currency of this new world order is not gold, gross domestic product, or military might. It is piety.
This sounds like a hostile corporate takeover to me.
How do you mean?
Well, imagine a ruthless, cutthroat corporation. The executives backstab each other constantly. The board of directors is entirely focused on squeezing every last penny out of the consumer.
We all know companies like that.
Right. And suddenly, there is a total buyout. But instead of the new management coming in with golden parachutes, firing everyone, and being even more ruthless, the new executives operate entirely on charity and absolute selflessness.
That would be a shock to the system.
They redirect all the corporate profits into community flourishing. The entire corporate culture changes overnight.
Yeah.
But does Edwards mean the church structurally takes over human governments? Like a global theocracy ruled by pastors? Do the ministers suddenly sit in the Oval Office?
Based on the biblical text Edwards relies on, he is not describing a bureaucratic merger where the church absorbs the state apparatus.
Okay, so no pastors in the Oval Office.
No, he is describing the individuals who hold temporal authority becoming entirely captive to vital piety.
The people themselves change.
Yes. The kings remain kings. The presidents remain presidents. The legislators remain legislators. But their hearts are changed.
Their motivations are different.
Their legislative and executive decisions are driven by a desire to honor God and bless his people.
Does that make sense?
The nursing fathers metaphor implies care, protection, and support, not ecclesiastical domination.
They are supporting, not ruling the church.
Exactly. The secular rulers use their distinct spheres of authority to cultivate an environment where the church flourishes. They don't preach the sermons, but they ensure the streets are safe for the people walking to hear the sermon.
And the result of this righteous governance is the total cessation of global conflict.
Right.
The weapons of war are destroyed or repurposed for agriculture. The plowshare replaces the sword.
Which is a huge economic shift.
Think about the sheer cost of war today. Think about the trillions of dollars, the brightest engineering minds, the massive industrial complexes dedicated solely to creating machines that destroy human life.
Is staggering when you actually add it all up.
Edwards envisions a reality where all of that capital, all of that genius is redirected toward cultivating life. The hostile intent is just gone.
Gone completely.
The wolf dwells with the lamb, and God's people find quiet resting places and sure dwellings.
You watch the global news today, and you see summits, treaties, and endless diplomacy.
Constantly.
But conflict always erupts again, because treaties only constrain outward behavior.
They don't fix the core issue.
They do not change the human heart. Edwards offers a vision where international conflict is not just paused by a piece of paper, but structurally eliminated.
Because the root is gone.
Yes, the root cause of war, human greed, pride, the lust for territory and dominance has been eradicated from the hearts of the rulers and the citizens.
So the peace actually lasts.
The quiet resting places are permanent because the threat has been neutralized at the source.
But perfect outward peace in society and politics can only be sustained if there is perfect inward unity.
That is true.
You cannot have nations beating their swords into plowshares if they are still internally fractured by ideological and theological hatred.
They would just find something else to fight about.
Exactly. If people still fundamentally disagree on the nature of reality, the swords will eventually get forged again.
That is the logical next step in Edwards' vision. The political peace is a byproduct of a much deeper spiritual reality.
Which is what?
The total eradication of doctrinal division.
Oh, wow.
Edwards looks at Zechariah 14, which says, "The Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day there shall be one Lord, and his name one."
One name.
And he concludes that the fractured reality of the historical church will end. All heresies, false doctrines, and superstitious ways of worship are abolished.
So no more arguing over theology.
Right, the church is no longer fractured by what he calls jarring opinions.
Since the very beginning, the church has struggled with division. We have seen councils, schisms, reformations, and just endless denominational splintering.
It is a messy history.
People fighting over the exact phrasing of a creed, or the specific mode of baptism, or the precise mechanics of communion.
Very heated debates.
Edwards stresses that worship will be purified. It will be conducted only in God's appointed way, completely free from human invention, idolatry, or superstition.
A total cleanup of the system.
God gives the people one heart and one way. Men of all nations correspond sweetly with one another as brethren, gathering to one house of God with one head.
The historical context here is crucial to understand. Edwards lived in an era of intense theological debate.
He was right in the middle of it.
He saw the splintering firsthand. So when he envisions a future free from jarring opinions, he is speaking to a very real, very painful human reality.
It wasn't just theoretical for him.
No, not at all. The ego involved in theological debate is immense. People build their entire identities around being right about a specific secondary doctrine.
Oh, definitely.
To have all of that melt away requires a massive shift.
I visualize this as a massive worldwide orchestra.
I like that.
For centuries, this orchestra has been tuning up. The string section is arguing with the brass section over the sheet music. Everyone is playing clashing, discordant notes.
A terrible noise.
Different sects are arguing over tempo and volume. One group wants to play a dirge, the other wants to play a march.
Total chaos.
Then, suddenly, a single conductor steps onto the podium, he raises his baton, and the entire orchestra snaps into flawless, synchronized harmony.
That is a great image.
But, how does this unity actually happen? If everyone suddenly agrees on everything, does everyone just become a theological robot, repeating the exact same phrases without any personal thought?
That is a valid concern.
Because, where is the individuality in perfect conformity?
Well, the unity is not achieved by lobotomizing the believers or suppressing their intellect.
Okay, good.
It is achieved by the vast increase in knowledge we discussed earlier.
Right.
The reason we have jarring opinions right now is because we have incomplete information.
We don't have the full picture.
Right. We have sinful biases, cultural blind spots, and limited intellects that distort our interpretation of Scripture. We are looking at a masterpiece through a dirty, scratched lens.
Everything is blurry.
In this promised future, the lens is cleaned. Everyone sees the truth perfectly.
And so they just naturally agree.
Exactly. When two rational beings see a perfect, unclouded truth, they naturally agree. They do not lose their individuality. Their individual minds are simply functioning at peak capacity, entirely aligned with reality.
So the harmony is a result of absolute clarity, not coercion.
Very well said.
They agree because the truth is plain, not because someone is forcing them to sign a statement of faith under threat of excommunication.
Right, there's no force involved.
Edward says they will sweetly correspond one with another. That implies active, joyful relationship and conversation.
It is a dynamic state.
You don't sweetly correspond if you are just a robot. You correspond when you are a vibrant, thinking human being sharing a mutual joy with another thinking human being.
And when spiritual health, societal peace, and doctrinal purity align perfectly like this, the physical world itself responds.
The environment gets involved.
Yes, the environment reacts to the spiritual reality of its inhabitants. We move from the mind to the government to the church and finally to the soil itself.
This is where the vision gets incredibly expansive.
It really opens up you.
Edwards outlines that this period brings massive temporal prosperity, incredible physical health, and the rejoicing of all creation.
The scope is just huge.
He details an immense physical relief from the burdens of a fallen world. Sickness is virtually eliminated.
Imagine that.
He quotes Isaiah 33, saying, "The inhabitant shall not say, 'I am sick.' Human lifespans will mirror the days of a tree."
Think about the physical toll of the curse from Genesis 3.
It is a heavy toll.
The ground was cursed to produce thorns and thistles. Human labor became agonizing toil. Our bodies were subjected to decay, disease, and eventually death.
Just a constant breakdown.
Edwards is saying that during this era, the curse on the ground seems virtually lifted. This results in incredible agricultural bounty. The severe historical calamities that have plagued humanity, famines, plagues, droughts, massive natural disasters, are removed.
No more famines.
Right. The earth yields its fruit without the agonizing resistance that characterizes human history.
The specifics he uses are wild. The mountains will drop new wine, and hills will flow with milk, referencing Joel 3.
Very vivid imagery.
A grand feast of fat things and marrow is prepared. And then he quotes Zephaniah 3.17, where Christ himself rejoices over the people with singing.
That is a staggering thought.
The physical creation reacts too. The fields and trees clap their hands, and mountains break forth into singing.
It is a cosmic celebration.
We usually think of humans singing to God. The idea of the Creator singing over his creation is a breathtaking emotional reality.
It shows such deep affection.
But with the talk of long life, agriculture, physical health, and trees clapping, is Edwards describing heaven?
A lot of people ask that.
Is this the eternal state, or is this a specific period of time on this earth right now, just highly upgraded?
Edwards is describing a period of time on this current earth, prior to the final consummation of all things.
Okay, so it is still this earth.
Yes. That is why he mentions long lifespans, like the days of a tree, rather than immortal resurrected bodies. People are still living, having children, farming, and governing.
Life goes on, just better.
The physical structure of the world remains, but the influence of sin and the curse has been so drastically reduced by the outpouring of the Holy Spirit that the earth experiences a golden age.
A literal golden age.
The mountains dropping sweet wine and hills flowing with milk is poetic language from the prophets describing absolute agricultural abundance. There is no scarcity.
Plenty for everyone.
The idea of Christ rejoicing over his people with singing highlights the intense, intimate pleasure the Redeemer takes in a purified bride.
And the physical creation clapping its hands is a beautiful personification.
It ties back to Paul's letters.
The Apostle Paul writes in Romans that creation groans under the bondage of corruption. The earth is subject to decay, pollution, and the harsh realities of a fallen system.
It is tired.
Here, Edwards sees the release from that bondage. The trees and mountains are expressing the relief and joy of a redeemed physical order. The hostility of nature is replaced by absolute provision and harmony.
It forces a hard look at our current reality, doesn't it?
It really does.
We worry about cancer, hurricanes, crop failures, and economic collapse. Edwards presents a reality where the physical planet itself is healed and participates in the joy of the believers.
It is a picture of what the earth was always meant to be.
Exactly.
But this brings us to a massive collision with our present moment.
Okay, how so?
If this breathtaking, comprehensive future reality is what is coming, what is the appropriate response for a believer living today, right now, while we are still surrounded by jarring opinions, sickness, and war?
That is the big question.
What do we do with this information today?
Edwards does not just paint this picture to entertain us. He demands a response.
He wants action.
He concludes that this promised future state is entirely worth praying for, and he lists multiple specific motivations that should drive believers to their knees to pray for its arrival.
Let's hear those motivations.
He provides a highly detailed list. He appeals to a regard for God's glory. If you want to see the Creator honored properly by His creation, you should want this day to come.
That is the highest motivation.
Then he appeals to a concern for the Redeemer's honor. Christ suffered the humiliation of the cross, so he serves to rule over a peaceful, holy earth.
Absolutely.
He appeals to love for God's people, who currently suffer under persecution, division, and physical pain. He appeals to pity for perishing sinners, knowing that massive numbers of people will be saved during this time.
It covers everyone.
He mentions compassion for mankind, suffering under calamities, a desire for their prosperity, and finally, love for one's country, neighbors, friends, and one's own soul.
He covers every possible angle. He appeals to the highest theological concepts, like God's glory, and the most intimate personal desires, like love for your friends and your own physical and spiritual well-being.
It is a very comprehensive list.
He ties the grand cosmic promises of the previous paragraphs directly to the quiet, disciplined action of the believer in their living room.
It is the ultimate contrast in scale.
They really...
You have global geopolitical transformation, the eradication of disease, the healing of the ozone layer, the end of all international conflict, and the mechanism for bringing it all about is a person closing their eyes and speaking to God.
It is like planting a tiny seed that is guaranteed to grow into a colossal redwood forest.
I love that analogy.
The act of planting, the prayer itself, seems impossibly small. You are just kneeling by your bed, whispering words into the silence.
Very quiet, very hidden.
But the envisioned result is earth-shattering. The trees clap, the wars end, the sun is outshined. But this leads to the classic tension.
The tension of prayer.
If this glorious future is a guaranteed biblical promise, if God has already decreed through Isaiah and Zechariah that the knowledge of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the sea, why does Edward stress that we must vigorously pray for it to happen?
People always ask that.
Doesn't a guaranteed promise make the prayer redundant? If the sun is going to rise at 6 a.m., I don't need to stay up all night praying for the sun to rise. It will rise regardless of my input.
That is the core tension in understanding divine sovereignty and human responsibility.
Right.
In the theological framework Edwards operates within, God does not just ordain the end result. He ordains the means to achieve that result.
Ah, the means are ordained too.
The guaranteed promise does not nullify the need for prayer. It actually provides the absolute fuel for prayer.
How does it fuel it?
You do not pray vigorously for something you think might be a fantasy. You pray vigorously precisely because you know it is a certainty, and God has decreed that the prayers of His saints are the exact instrument He will use to bring it about.
So they aren't just wishes.
No, the prayers are not passive wishes thrown into the void. They are active, appointed mechanisms in God's cosmic administration.
So when you read those prophecies about the swords turning into plowshares, the correct response is not to sit back on the couch, look at your watch, and wait for it to happen.
Definitely not.
The correct response is to plead with God to fulfill His promises in your day. Edwards is telling his readers that they get to participate in the ushering in of this glorious era.
They are invited into the process.
Their prayers are the actual machinery moving history forward.
We look for grand political solutions or massive technological breakthroughs to fix the globe.
All the time.
We think the solution to war is a better treaty, or the solution to disease is a better algorithm. But Edwards points us back to the closet. He points us to the knees.
Quiet places.
The unvarnished truth of this text is that the highest glories of the future are linked to the quiet faithfulness of the present.
We started today by talking about a fortress shrouded in darkness with a locked door and hidden light.
We did.
Edwards is telling us that the key to unlocking that door, the mechanism that eventually brings down the walls and floods the world with sunlight, is placed right in our hands through prayer.
Is a heavy thought.
If Edwards is right, and your prayers are the actual machinery moving history forward, what does it mean about the days you simply choose not to pray at all? Are we delaying the sunrise?
That is a sobering question.
Thank you for joining us today for this deep dive. We leave you to mull over the immense weight your own prayers might carry in bringing about this spectacular future.